radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Friday, August 23rd. I hope everybody's having a great time. Had a good week, looking forward to a good weekend, and everything is going well. All right, so today's going to be a bit of a mix of a show. We're going to start out with some news items, and we'll go through those. And then the second part of it, of my part, your part is the questions, of course, and me answering the questions. But the second part of my part will be a little bit of a positive presentation of some ideas. Life is an adventure, and you should view it as such, and so we'll talk about that. I want to make sure we covered the news, and then I thought I could do a positive show tomorrow, but then tomorrow's an AMA, so I forgot. So I will remind you, tomorrow is an AMA, Ask Me Anything. It'll be earlier. It's at 6 p.m. my time, so it'll be 12 p.m. East Coast time. Sorry, West Coast people. And those of you in Hawaii, you're going to have to wake up early to do the show. But AMA, 6 p.m. tomorrow. Hope you can join me. Those of you who want to be on live, please feel free. You should be getting, you should have gotten already, but you should be getting, again, a reminder today of the link and all of that stuff for the AMA tomorrow. But the AMA tomorrow at 12 o'clock noon East Coast time. Oh, yes, you do need video. All right. Different setups create different challenges. All right, video is on now. All right, let's see. What are we talking about today? Well, the big news, and what I want to comment about is, the amazing show that ended yesterday, the amazing theater that we got at the Democratic National Convention. I mean, you got to give it to them. They put on a show, and they have figured out. I mean, to Kamala Harris's credit, to her people's credit, whoever is running the show over there, since they benched Biden, to their credit, they have got it. What they get is that the American people are not looking for a far-left political party with wacky social ideas and a wacky approach to foreign policy. So what you got from the Democratic Party was this centrist presentation, almost nothing woke. I mean, who could imagine that 4 years after BLM would barely be mentioned? I don't know if it was mentioned, but not in any significant way. Who would imagine that, identity politics would barely be mentioned? Yes, Michelle Obama talked about systemic racism, but nobody made a big deal out of it. I mean, the reality is that Kamala Harris, if she gets elected, will be proof that systemic racism in America does not exist. They talked tough on national defense, and so gone is the America is the devil, the America is colonial, it just didn't come up during the convention. What else didn't come up? I mean, really, the whole woke agenda. Of course, the main thing that didn't come up, in spite of the protests outside the convention, much smaller protests than anybody expected, was the whole Palestinian thing, the whole protest movement, the whole anti-Israel crowd. Indeed, Kamala Harris went out of her way to make a case that she would guarantee the protection of the state of Israel, and threw a small bone to the Palestinians, but not much, given how big of an issue this has been on the far left. So what the Democratic Party wanted you to come away from this convention with a feeling of is that this is a centrist party that has no interest in woke, no interested in identity politics, no interested in the whole array of agendas from anti-Israel and everything else that is associated with the far left. I don't know if they succeed in convincing people of that. It surely seems that way. I've been reading articles and blog posts from people writing about this, both on the left and on the right. And it really does seem like they are convinced, oh no, the Democratic Party is now a centrist party. It really is pretty amazing, but not just centrist. This is the thing and this is the big contrast with the Republicans, and this is what might get them a win, is that they came across as positive, optimistic, pro-American. They've really figured out that the way I think they believe that they can beat Trump, whether it's right or not, I do not know, but they think they can beat Trump, is by contrasting his whiny, negative, dark, depressing demeanor and positions with some optimism. We're moving forward, the future's bright, whatever. It's all, we'll get to what it all means in a minute, but this is the facade they're putting on. The facade is, we're centrists, we're not interested in the far left. The facade is that we are, even climate change was not that big of a deal. Climate change was not that big of a deal. Clean air, clean water, yeah, we all believe in that. But they even played down the anti-fossil fuel, the anti-fracking, and the whole climate change agenda, just because they know it's not popular with Americans. So they're not making a big deal out of it. So on the one hand, they are winking and thumbs up to the to the left, saying, yeah, we still believe in all this stuff, but we're not going to say it publicly. So vote for us. And they've energized, I think, a lot of young people, and they've energized a lot of their base. Their base is super energized and super positive. On the other hand, to middle America and to swing voters and Republicans who are anti-Trump and to others and independents, they are saying, oh, no, we're a centrist party. We believe in, we're not a revolutionary party. We're not going to change America. There was no talk, for example, on stacking the Supreme Court. There was no attacks on the Supreme Court. There was no talk of any kind of radical agenda. We're just mainstream. We're just middle of the road. We're just like the old days. Indeed, they sounded, Peggy Noonan wrote an op-ed, Peggy Noonan, a speechwriter for Ronald Reagan, saying they've stolen faith and they've stolen national security and they've stolen family and hard work. They've stolen all of these values from Republicans. They sound like the old Republican Party. So this is the persona that they wanted to reflect. Kamala Harris herself gave again, technically good speech, very conversational, passionate at moments. She delivered it well. She came across, I think, really well as this prosecutor. She's a centrist. She's never been attracted to the far left and all of that. One thing they understand, and I think the Republicans understand this as well, is on the one issue you can be far left on, the one issue that the American people don't seem to care if you're far left on is economics. Economic liberty, nobody seems to really care. So the Republicans can be for central planning and for tariffs and for all of that. And the Democrats can be, they want to raise taxes on the wealthy. They want to raise taxes on capital gains. They want to, pass a law for gouging and all of this stuff. Now, all of this will need bipartisan support. So, and of course, they're for industrial policy and all of this. But the reality is that from the perspective of the American voter, from the perspective of independent voters, from the perspective of swing voters, from the perspective of Democratic voters, they don't care about stuff like that. I think the general consensus in America today is Republicans, Democrats, higher taxes, lower taxes, this president, that president. The economy just seems to chug along. Who cares? There's no principled thinking. There's no real recognition of the value of free market. There's no real recognition of what drives the American economy and why it is successful. And as a consequence, there's a lot of magical thinking. There's a lot of make stuff up. And there's just a complete abandonment of any respect for markets. A lot of talk about freedom at the Democratic National Convention. Lots of talk about freedom. Indeed, more talk about freedom in the Democratic Convention than in the Republican Convention. Neither of them know what the word means. And certainly when the Democrats talk about freedom, they're not talking about your economic freedom, your freedom to contract, your freedom to build a business, your freedom to hire and fire who you want and pay them what you negotiate with them. None of that exists, but none of that exists in the Republican Party either, because Americans don't care. Because the reality is that if you had even a soft, pro-capitalist, I don't know, Nikki Haley type running, I don't think that resonates. Not right now. Not with America today. So the area which I care about a lot of areas, but the area that I care about, economic liberty and economic freedom, I care about capitalism, doesn't have a champion, not in this race, not in these two political parties, not in the political parties that we see before us today. But the Democrats put on a show. I mean, here are the issues that Kamala Harris talked about in her speech. I'm taking this from the Free Press, one of their articles. Okay, here it is, in the order of appearance of the issues. Hard work, family values, Republican stuff, civil rights, fight for the little guy, Trump's an asshole. Yeah, January 6th, okay, democracy at stake, protect the middle class, jobs, economy, lower costs, cheaper groceries, Trump tax, all right, all the economic stuff getting out of the way, right? But all in the context of positives. We've created jobs, lower costs, all of this stuff, right? Then abortion, your body, your choice. Then bad gun violence, gay stuff, clean water, air, climate change, just a teeny little bit, voting rights, border security. She came out tough on border security. She was going to stop illegal immigration into the country. She was tough on immigration, right? She very smartly, in my view, is trying to take that issue away from Donald Trump. And in a debate, she will accuse Donald Trump for coming out against a bipartisan bill that would have dramatically reduced illegal immigration. And she might be successful at doing it. Talked about space. Ceasefire, kind of maybe pressure on Israel, but we'll support Israel. We've got their back. And then a bone to the Palestinians. And then folksy wisdom from mom. And then strength, freedom, opportunity, dignity. We're not going back. We are not going back. And we are certainly not going back. So, very much a message about moving forward, right? Moving forward. So, yeah, I mean, they can talk and they can pull it off, and they can pull off. I think what they realize is, all they need to do really is come across as normal, as sane. This is related to their attempt to paint Trump as if this is really difficult, and Vance as weird, as abnormal, as maybe a little crazy, as angry, as dark. And they are going to portray themselves, Kamala and the rest of them, as sane, as normal, as just another presidential candidate like all the presidential candidates before Trump, as American, pro-American. She had a number of lines there about pro-America, pointing to the flag. I mean, American exceptionalism is back on the Democratic side. Again, great theater. Great theater. So, yeah, I mean, the best thing that could have happened to the Democratic Party was Biden stepping down. Instead of that depressing misery, pessimism, dark view, and just depression because the guy's not there, they have got energy. They have got it. Now, let's be clear. Much of this is, all of it is theater. All of it is theater. Kamala Harris is not pro-Israel and is not, but you know, Kamala will do what is politically necessary. Kamala doesn't believe in much. On economic freedoms, we know what Kamala stands for. Higher taxes, more regulations, more controls, more power to the bureaucrats, more power to the regulatory agencies. The only thing stopping us from descending into greater and greater fascism is other courts, which have taken a positive turn towards an anti-regulation, anti-regulatory agency view, anti-administrative state view. They still hate billionaires. They won't say it quite as much. There was a funny scene. So Bernie Sanders goes up there and he does the Bernie Sanders shtick about how awful billionaires are and they don't pay taxes and they don't do this and, you know, billionaires are the enemy. And guess who speaks right after Bernie Sanders? I mean, literally, who programmed this? It could have been a comedy skit. The guy coming up next is Pritzker, the governor of Illinois. Now, Pritzker is a billionaire, mainly because he inherited it. Pritzker is a billionaire. He's part of the family that started Hyatt Hotels, and he inherited a lot of money, and he's a billionaire. So Pritzker's out there basically saying, I'm a billionaire, and I'm richer than Donald Trump. Donald Trump's not a real billionaire. I'm a real billionaire. This is right after Sanders has just said billionaires are the enemy of the people. So that's a Democratic Party for you. So they put on this, again, this theater, but we know what they actually stand for. Now, I've told you for a while that I think woke as a big political agenda is in decline. It doesn't sell. The American people don't buy it. It will still be around in more subtle ways, less in the headlines, less in politics per se, and more in the DEI departments that have been already set up and already exists and are not just going to disappear one day. Although, as I told you in a story the other day, they are in decline. They're slowly being eliminated in places like Silicon Valley. But the woke agenda is diminishing. It's in decline because Americans don't want it. Americans don't like it. You know, you have to give it to the Democrats. They got it together. They presented a united front. They presented a front that is centrist. They pretended like the woke agenda, they're not interested in it anymore, even as I'm sure Harris administration will do all kinds of things to try to elevate identity politics. They're pretending it doesn't exist. You know, Obama was never huge on the kind of woke stuff. He was kind of critical of it, and I think he will have a lot of sway on kind of the Kamala attitudes. We'll see. We should all worry about Waltz. I mean, he's really bad. He's really a real leftist, much more than Kamala is, who I think is more swayable in either direction. And we should worry about the Democrats because they're not a political party of freedom. They're not a political party of they're not the political party of the center. They're certainly not a political party of economic freedom. And they're not going to be as pro-Israel as past Democrats have been. They are, they will be influenced by their far left. There's no question about that. The whole political landscape has moved left. Republicans have moved left on economic issues, and I think on foreign policy issues. And the Democrats have moved left. And but right now, Kamala looks like she's the favorite. I don't think the margins are big. I still think it's a toss-up, but with a slight edge to Kamala. I think you can tell that she's probably leading in a lot of the polls by the fact that Trump seems to be panicking. He's out of control. He was, on Truth Network tweeting whatever it is. He really is out of control, and the reality is that the more he whines, the more he complains, the more he is dark and negative right now. Before he could be dark and negative versus Hillary Clinton, yeah, okay, nobody liked Clinton, but everybody hated Clinton. But people don't hate Kamala. They might not like her, they might not know her. Now we'll see. A lot is still going to happen, and there will be a debate, and some of her crazy economic ideas are going to be hashed out, and there could be still a lot of problems. Israel, the war's still going on. Michigan, she could lose the Arab vote. I mean, there's still a lot that can happen, but she's sitting pretty right now. One of the things that the Democrats succeeded in doing, I don't know how, maybe it's just the reality that the whole Palestinian issue is not as big of an issue as people think. They make a lot of noise, but in terms of numbers, they're just not that big. Is the protesters try to make this 1968 again, and they completely failed. They tried to make this Chicago in 1968. We've talked about this. Very few people showed up in comparison to expectations. They didn't have any real impact. They didn't disrupt the convention. They went into downtown Chicago and they tried to attack institutions related to Israel, and there was some conflict with the police. They tore down fencing. The police arrested some people, but nothing on scale, nothing that changed the dynamic of the convention itself. Again, unlike 1968, where the protests, I think, shaped a lot of what happened at the convention and a lot of the attitudes. And so, again, the Democrats pulled it off. You gotta give them credit for that, and they are in full swing trying to fool the American people into believing they've become something they are not, and they might be successful. They might be very successful. Hard to tell. Okay. Let's see. Let me remind you. We've been lagging a little bit on the Super Chat last few days, since really I've been in Barcelona the last few weeks. So, I'm not sure what to say about that, but please consider that the value for value proposition, the fact that these shows need to pay for themselves, that we do have these goals, they're not just arbitrary. It represents some reflection of the value of time. So let's try to hit those goals, or at least approach hitting those goals. I don't know. We haven't gone for 3-hour shows in Barcelona, so we haven't really tried to hit the 750, but we should definitely be hitting those 500s because we're definitely doing 2-hour shows. So for those of you out there, thank you to all the super chatters who do provide, and thank you for all the those who do stickers, and for everybody who asks questions. The questions are incredibly valuable. I see Michael already has like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 questions out there. So thank you, Michael. But please consider asking a question, doing a sticker. Again, at any amount, it all adds up, it all helps. And of course, if I do have whales listening to me, maybe people are on vacation. I'm not sure what exactly is going on. Maybe people out there on vacation. But if you are of the ability to do 100 or more, that is always valued, and that is what really takes us over the top on these shows. Mary Aline, thank you for the sticker. And Paul, thank you for the sticker. I really appreciate it. All right, we've talked about the jobs thing where, the Department of Labor announced that, the Labor Department announced that there were actually 818,000 fewer jobs created last year, the fiscal year that ended, or the year that ended at the end of March, the 12 months that ended at the end of March. There were actually 818 fewer jobs created than they had reported. At the time, right? So I thought we'd dig a little bit deeper into this, into what's going on here and how this can happen. And, I mentioned the fact that the Trump administration in 2019 also overestimated job creation, the Labor Department back then, by 500,000, not 800,000, 500,000, still a significant amount. How does this happen? How do they get it so wrong? What is going on here? And I think that there's a number of things that we need to take into account. And first is, how does the government know how many jobs are created? How does it even estimate that? How does it get that data? So there are basically 3 methods that they use to determine how many people have jobs on a monthly basis, right? The first, and you might find these funny, and they are kind of funny because they're pretty primitive, but one of the things to realize is the United States government is probably one of the best, if not the best in the world at doing this stuff, at estimating this stuff, these aggregate statistics. So this is kind of the methodology that's pretty dominant in the world, and other countries are not as good. And what other countries also don't do as well as the US does is they don't adjust. That is, if they've reported numbers, they don't go back and say, whoops, we made a mistake, it was higher, it was lower, and they make those adjustments. The US is very good at doing that, and in that sense is more honest, I think, than many other governments. So here are the things that they do. First, and this is how you get the monthly job creations. So on a monthly basis, you get this announcement, 200,000 jobs were created. Now those are net jobs. So that takes into account how many people were fired, how many people got a job, and the net is that 200,000 plus, right? So how do they determine that? Well, they call up a sample of companies in the United States, and they ask, how many workers do you employ? How many have you fired? How many have you hired? And then they take their data, right? They take this data, which is only a sample. They cannot call every single company in the US. And they adjust it. They extrapolate from it around trends and around, historical data. They have an algorithm. It's all math, right? But it's all just statistical projections. So that's what they do on a monthly basis. That's the basis for these numbers that come out. And that we know that 200,000, it's because businesses have told them, yeah, we hired 3 people, we fired 1, so plus 2, okay, plus 2 for this company, and then they add them all up, and then they take whatever number it is, and they take different industries, and they say, okay, how many businesses generally in the United States in each industry? They have a statistical model that basically projects what that means to the economy as a whole. And you can see how messy, you'd expect it to be inaccurate. Second, the government can wait, and does wait, for the states to report their unemployment insurance claims. Then it tries to extrapolate from those. So this is where the revisions come from. So after months, at a lag, the states report unemployment insurance claims. So how many people are unemployed? So we know how many people are unemployed. If that number is increasing, that means they were just fired, because you can't get unemployment insurance indefinitely, right? Every state, you can get it for a few months, depending on the state. And you can extrapolate from that how many people were laid off that month. And you can adjust your numbers based on all the other data that you have. And again, it's an extrapolation. It's not literally knowing how many people are unemployed. It's not literally knowing how many people are working. It's all a kind of extrapolation. So that's the second means by which this is done. The third is that the government literally calls up households, calls up people at home, and asks them, hey, do you have a job right now? If not, when were you laid off? When was the last time you worked? It surveys people. And again, it doesn't call every household in the United States. It does a survey and extrapolates from that. So these numbers are inherently messy. They're not accurate. Sometimes the algorithm works great and all these three different measures land up being consistent. And sometimes some measures contradict the other measures and there need to be adjustments. And that's what we just saw. I mean, even this 818,000 number is ultimately an extrapolation. It's not an absolute number. It's not literally counting every person who's employed, every person who's lost a job, every new job that's been created. The government just doesn't do that. It cannot do that. No government in the world actually does that. So again, this is all based on surveys and all kinds of algorithms and mathematical extrapolations in order to get the ultimate number that we have. So, that's where we have it. Now, if we look at jobs growing, right, the number of jobs growing, I mean, these are net job growth. So if you have a finite population, at some point, you don't have any job growth anymore, right? Because population, everybody's employed, you're done. It's finite. Now, the United States population is growing at about 145,000 people a month. And age structure is pretty stable. So you could argue that the U.S. needs to add somewhere around 145,000 new jobs every month. Now, this is including immigrants and everything else, although I'm not sure. I don't think this includes illegal immigrants. Now, from April 2023 to March 2024, after this adjustment, the estimate is that the U.S. added 174,000 jobs, so more than 145,000. So not only did the economy produce enough jobs to absorb all the new people coming into the job market, immigrants, children who are reaching an age where they're looking for a job, but it also created another 20-something thousand jobs, 21,000 jobs. Oh, no, I'm not doing the math right. 29,000 jobs for people who might have dropped out of the job market and now re-entering it. So, not bad, right? It's okay. Generally, the employment picture in the United States looks pretty good. If you look at employment rate of people between 25 and 54, prime age employment rate, it's called the prime age employment rate. It's probably close to the highest rate it's ever been. It's higher than it was in 2019, just a little bit. So before COVID. It's taken a long time to recover from COVID, all those kids getting out of their basements slowly. But over the last year or so, it's up there above the 2019 number. So prime age Americans are working. They've got jobs, which is a good thing. A good thing. It's an excellent thing, right? They're playing fewer video games, I guess, and they're actually working. I know this is upsetting to some of you, because it's kind of positive, and we're not supposed to be positive about anything right now in the world, but it's reality. The employment rate is not up to 2019, but that is because a lot of that's more demographics than anything else. That's because a lot of people took early retirement and a lot of people have retired. That's the baby boomers retiring. The employment rate is the total population, the number of people working divided by the total population. I think the much more meaningful number is the 25 to 54-year-olds who are working, because that represents prime working age. That's the most important number. And again, that took a long time to recover after COVID, and it is recovered. And there's a lot of jokes, and I think Trump still talks about people in their basements working. You know, one of the things that could be happening around the big adjustment, the 818,000, and I get this from Noah Smith, but I think this is really interesting. I didn't think of this, and I don't know that this is true, but you could speculate that one of the reasons they miscalculated could be illegal immigration. That is, given the spike in illegal immigration in 21 and 22, most of those people have gotten jobs in the black market. They're not legal jobs. So while if the government calls up the company and says, hey, have you hired people today? They might say, yeah, we've hired 5 people. 3 of those might be illegal immigrants. And the employment numbers have gone up. But when unemployment insurance claims are made, and when kind of the official numbers in terms of government programs and government payments and all that is made, those 3 illegal immigrants will not show up because they're not eligible for any of that. So it could be that the original numbers are actually correct, that these jobs were created, that the 818,000 jobs were created, but they were jobs that illegal immigrants took, and that now that we're adjusting based on official figures, they're not real. That is, we're taking them out. Is it good that we have jobs for illegal immigrants? Yeah. It means, A, that the economy is producing jobs, and B, we'd rather have them work than not work if they're here already. So it could very well be that the actual original numbers were true, and this adjustment is just adjusting for the legal status of the immigrants. Okay. So just in terms of trying to be objective about the jobs report. Of course, in a laissez-faire capitalist economy, I don't think the government would report jobs. In a laissez-faire economy, the government wouldn't be responsible for making sure people had jobs. Supply and demand would determine that, and people would just have jobs. And I expect laissez-faire economy is a full employment economy. Everybody works, partially because there's no welfare, there's no government programs to allow you to shirk the ability to work. Yes, parents might still allow their kids to stay in their basement playing video games and pay their way without sending them to work, but fewer parents would probably do that in a rational society. And what else? So you've got all of these. Would GDP be calculated? How it would be calculated? What statistics would be calculated? Does the government really need to do statistics? You know the story about the governor of Hong Kong? I think I've told this story, or it's come up in conversations in the past. But the governor of Hong Kong, who really, and I forget his name, who really set Hong Kong onto a path of economic freedom and capitalism, as close to laissez-faire capitalism as any place has ever come to, never reported economic statistics, never measured them, never went out and tested. There was no department for economic statistics. They didn't report anything. And he was asked, why aren't you reporting? I mean, what's happening in Hong Kong is amazing. GDP must be going through the roof. Employment, all this stuff is going through the roof. Why aren't you reporting it? And he said, as soon as we start aggregating statistics, as soon as we start actually reporting statistics, there will be a demand that we have policies targeted at those statistics. As soon as we start reporting, the demand will be that we become more statist. And he said, no, I'm not willing to become more statist. The only way we preserve freedom is by not playing that game. See, I think in the laissez-faire capitalism, you don't get all these stats. But again, government data revision, while seemingly horrific, doesn't change the fact that unemployment is relatively low, that job creation is relatively robust, that people are employed in the U.S. economy, and that the U.S. economy has done reasonably well over the last couple of years, and that all the panic and hysteria, particularly from Trump and everybody else, is really uncalled for, because they don't have solutions for all of it, for how to get the economy really going. I'd like to see the U.S. economy grow at 5%, but how do you get the U.S. economy to grow at 5%? I know how to do it. A lot of us know how to do it, but nobody in government seems interested in actually doing it. It involves massive deregulation, getting the government out of the business, and ultimately returning money to people, allowing people to invest, and getting the government out of the whole subsidy, investment, regulation game. That is how you get superior economic growth. All right, let's see. What else do I want to do? So that's jobs. It does look like, given what is perceived to be a slowdown in economic growth right now, and what seems to be a slowdown in job creation right now, it does look like the Fed will decrease interest rates with the hope, the prayer, the expectation that statistical models suggest will increase economic activity and get the economy buzzing again. We will see. We will see. All right. Let's talk about the UK hate speech. Let's see. How many stories do I want to start? I want to do that, and then that on Netanyahu. All right. We got two stories. Basically, we're going to talk about UK and free speech, and then we're going to talk about Benny Morris. I think Michael asked me about Benny Morris the other day. So we'll talk about Benny Morris's evaluation of Netanyahu. And I'm going to say something positive about Benny Morris for a change, so Michael will be happy. Michael says, I asked a $100 question at the end of your show the other day. You didn't get to it? Can you read it from the chat? I don't think I find that hard to believe. Yeah, just post it onto the chat. I don't think I missed any questions in the last few days, because I have this program that I keep track of them. None of them, I must have screwed up completely. Michael, just ask it in the chat. I'll copy paste it onto my Word doc, and I'll answer it. I'll answer it first thing, as soon as we get to that part of the show. All right, let's see. UK, we've talked about this a little bit, been a number of public stories about this that have emphasized just how nutty this is. I mean, we had the riots in the UK, they were terrible, they were, really unacceptable, and the UK police ultimately have arrested a lot of the rioters, and they will face jail time, and they deserve it. But at the same time, as people, being violent out there, and there is a question of whether the Muslim rioters will face the same kind of jail time as the white English rioters will face. We will see. But the reality is, bungee jumping is off the list, and RFK drop out of the race and endorse Trump. What's there to go and listen to? What a waste of time. One of the things that the UK police and the UK government is cracking down on is not just the violent protesters, not just the rioters, not just the people engaged in physical force, which they should be clamping down on, But the UK has spent the last few weeks clamping down on people making comments on social media. Not, in addition to, by the way, people talking in the streets and during the demonstrations and saying things that the government deems as unacceptable, but people just posting stuff on social media. They have taken this expansive view, this massively expansive view of incitement, where any contentious idea, any piece of what they deem as misinformation, some of it is misinformation and disinformation, anything that might be an expression of hatred and might be viewed as stirring up hatred, is now becoming incitement, is now becoming unprotected speech. Now, again, the UK doesn't have a First Amendment, so there's a sense in which they don't have protected speech. And they are sentencing people to jail time for saying things. A 53-year-old woman from Cheshire was sentenced to 15 months in prison, 15 months in prison, for posting, quote, "Don't protect the mosques, blow the mosques up with the adults in it," unquote. Now, she posted that on Facebook. Now, that's pretty despicable. That's a horrible thing to say. But was she planning to blow up a mosque? No. Did she have any influence on a particular group of people that might then go and blow up a mosque, i.e., was she inciting a mob? No, not really. She was expressing a vile opinion, a horrible opinion, a stupid opinion, an opinion she probably would never really act on. Or maybe she would, who knows, on Facebook. 15 months in jail? I mean, it's been documented now that there's a series of judges in the UK that are sending people to jail for comments they make, like, I don't know, filthy bastards, with some emojis of brown people. Again, horrible, despicable, with a gun. But that person got 12 weeks in jail. At least not 12 months, but 12 weeks in jail. The same judge, in 2022, gave no prison time to a man who pleaded guilty to possession of 46 indecent images of children. So child pornography, but saying something negative about racist, as horrible and as immoral as that is okay. And you can go on. You know, another judge sentenced a man to 20 months in prison for posting on Facebook, "Every man and their dog should be smashed the F out of a hotel housing migrants." Really? 20 months? Again, no link to intent, no crowd he was actually going, inciting, no action taken. Another judge sentenced a man who shouted racist comments at a soccer player to 9 months in lockup. And they are super lenient on all kinds of other cases that involve, in this case, the examples, this is, I guess, in the National Review, examples of child pornography. That is no big deal. Or sexual harassment, all kinds of, horrible stuff. I've said this many times, but it's worth repeating, and I think you know it, but there is no more important issue than free speech. If we can't speak, we can't change the world. We can't have an influence. We can't actually go out there and have an impact. So free speech is fundamental to everything. One second, let me just see something here. I think I found Michael's question. Let me just make sure Did I have it before we go on? I don't see part 1 and 2. I don't see it. I only see part 1. Where's the part 2, Michael? All right, it'd be great, Michael, if you could ask the question again if you're still on. You might have asked the questions and gone away. Yeah. All right, anyway, if you're there, or if somebody can find Michael's part 2, his first part is about Israel's plan to spare as many civilians, but it cuts off, so I don't know where the part 2 is. So if somebody can go and find the part 2, that'd be great, and post it. That will be good. I don't see it. Not sure where it went. And I can't remember this question, so I must have missed it somehow last time. Let me see if I can find it here. Sorry guys, I'll be right with you. No, there's no part 2. All right. Can't believe I missed a $100 question, Michael. Sorry about that. All right. Keep going. All right. So anyway, that is free speech is the most important thing we have, and in protecting free speech, we are going to have to protect the right of horrible people to say horrible things, inappropriate things, disgusting things, horrific things, things we vehemently disagree with. But we have to do that if we're going to protect the right to free speech, which is part of the right to liberty, which is part of the right to think. And remember that when the right to free speech goes, our ability to change the world, our ability to have an impact, our ability to have an influence goes with it. So it is truly distressing to see what is going on in the UK. It is truly distressing to contemplate kind of, not just in the UK, but in Europe, but certainly the UK seems to be at the forefront of this. It really is horrible and despicable and disgusting and sad and unfortunate. All right. Okay, finally, I noticed an op-ed today in Haaretz. Haaretz is a left-wing newspaper in Israel. It's the equivalent of the New York Times in Israel. And it's an op-ed by Benny Morris, who I've been very critical of, and who I've told you I don't like, because I think he was one of the first what's called post-Zionist, post-modernist historians in Israel. And I've seen critiques of his books and articles where he's been accused of real distortions and misrepresentations and mistranslations in order to make Israel look bad and the Palestinians look good. He then changed his mind, but he changed his mind in terms of his general attitude towards Israel and the Palestinians, but he never really changed what he wrote in the past. He basically came out with a kind of an opinion that says, in some sense, it's justified, the horrible things that Israel did, which he didn't do, but he claims they did, and those opinions held, they're all justified. Anyway, he's a reshaper of history in I think a negative way. Anyway, he wrote this op-ed on Netanyahu, so I figured I'd read it. And while I don't agree with all of it, because he definitely has a bit of, not too much of, he plays this delicate balancing act of kind of a left-wing attitude towards the Palestinian. Not too much, but a little bit. He is very, very, very good on Netanyahu. So Michael, maybe you'll be listening to this after the fact. I don't think you're on right now, but I know you asked me about Benny Morris the other day. So I want to read you some of this, just so you get a sense that I'm not the only one who has these views on Netanyahu. And this is not a critique of Netanyahu primarily from the left. He has some of that in there. But most of this is a critique of Netanyahu from the perspective of Israeli self-defense, from the perspective of being tough and from the perspective of what it takes to win a war. By the way, Ori, thank you for the sticker. Really, really appreciate that. And by the way, on the first hour, we're still short quite a bit. So if there are people out there who would like to participate, who would like to support the show, would like value for value, please jump in with some stickers. I mean, if everybody does a $2.99 sticker right now, a $1.99 sticker, we could get a long way towards achieving our first hour goal. But we don't want to be in a deep hole before we even enter the second hour. So I'm quoting from the op-ed by Benny Mars. He writes, Israel is today weak and is perceived to be weak by its enemies. Despite the stockpile of bombs in the basement and despite its armored divisions and legendary special ops units. The person chiefly responsible for this is the prime minister of the past 15 years, with a break of about a year and a half in 2021-22. For more than 10 months, Israel, with an army of 500,000 soldiers, hasn't succeeded in eradicating a terrorist organization of 30,000 combatants, equipped mainly with assault rifles, RPG launchers, and anti-tank missiles in a tiny geographic area. And he says, and I'm aware of the complex urban realities of the Gaza Strip and the labyrinth of tunnels for which Israel hasn't found a quick, effective solution. I think he's absolutely right. This has taken way too long, and the achievements are still pretty minor in the big picture, given the difference in military force between Hamas and Israel. He continues, and Israel isn't daring to seriously hurt Hezbollah, which on a daily basis is raining down rockets, missiles, and drones on the settlements in northern Israel, or to attack Iran, which has been orchestrating the multi-arena offensive against our country for more than 10 months. Israel is strong? He writes with a question mark. Absolutely right. I've been saying this all along. Israel has not attacked Hezbollah. And it's giving a free ride to the Iranians. A free ride when it's had every single reason in the world to demolish that country, to attack it, and to destroy its capacity for offensive warfare and destroy its economy. Continue from the op-ed. Netanyahu frequently mentions the Prime Minister of Britain in World War II, Winston Churchill, and likes to be photographed with books about him. Implicitly, at least, he likens himself to this noble Briton. By the way, I'm just reading sections of the op-ed. You can read the whole thing in the Haaretz newspaper. But no comparison could be more ludicrous. Churchill was a leader, daring and warm-hearted, who possessed the foresight to recognize the danger to his country and who was able ultimately to unite his people in the face of the Nazi threat. In contrast to Churchill, Netanyahu, despite continuous warnings by the heads of the defense establishment, failed to identify the security threat facing Israel. And in the past 2 years, also succeeded in deeply dividing the Israelis through his efforts to undermine the country's democratic institutions and through a variety of manipulations related to the course of the war and the problem of the Israeli hostages held in Gaza. I agree 100%. A Churchill is able to decide and act resolutely when facing dramatic problems. Netanyahu, by contrast, has excelled for years in hesitation and procrastination, some would say through cowardice, which he has with great skill been able to sell to his ignorant supporters as judiciousness and wisdom. Now, I've been saying this for decades. For more than 20 years, I've been saying this about Netanyahu. Finally, somebody's put it into words, better words than probably I have. Hesitation and procrastination, cowardice. Netanyahu is a coward. At the start of the Gaza war, I'm continuing to read, to which he attached the peculiar name Sword of Iron, Netanyahu repeatedly postponed the stage of the ground invasion of Gaza. Remember, I was saying, why aren't they attacking? Why aren't they attacking? They should be attacking immediately. What are they waiting for? How could they be waiting? Netanyahu repeatedly postponed the stage of the ground invasion of Gaza and nixed the defense minister's proposal of October 12th to launch a massive preemptive attack on Hezbollah, which is what I proposed on October 9th, I think. It is Netanyahu who nixed that, who stopped that from happening, suffering the consequences right now. He acted similarly in previous bouts of fighting against Hamas and Hezbollah, which, again, I commented on years and years and years ago. Indeed, Netanyahu has been postponing a decision regarding Hezbollah for 10 months and more. And throughout his years as prime minister, he has repeatedly deferred a decision regarding the Iranian nuclear project, which now appears on the verge of completion. He gives great UN, this is me now, gives great UN speeches, great speeches in front of Congress, great speeches about Iran and the threat it poses and that it must never get a nuclear program. And what has he done to stop it? Israel has the military capability to stop the Iranians from developing a bomb. Has Netanyahu done it? Has he even come close to doing it? No. Thank you, Benny Mars. Okay, just continue a few more paragraphs. In contrast to Churchill, Netanyahu, through his lengthy career, excelled in inciting and dividing. He incited simultaneously against liberals and against Yitzhak Rabin, against secular Israelis and against the left, and seized Sfardim on Ashkenazim. Incite and divide has been his constant modus operandi. A previously Likud prime minister, Yitzhak Shamir, rightly dubbed Netanyahu as an angel of sabotage. At present, Netanyahu and his lackeys are occupied with inciting against the heads of the defense establishment, that is, the heads of the Israeli Defense Forces, the Mossad and the Shin Bet security service, and the families of the hostages in Gaza. A year ago, he incited against the judiciary and the law enforcement agencies, all in the service of his personal needs, his desire for power, in my view, namely continuing to rule, there it is, and to stay out of jail. Over the past months, Netanyahu has rebuffed every attempt to establish a state commission of inquiry to examine the events of October 7th. His chief motive for this is abundantly clear: flight from responsibility and accountability for his deeds and failures. But this is also we'll skip that. But in the meantime, we have the press, or more accurately, a few newspapers and a few electronic media outlets that are providing a flow of information about the events before October 7th and about what happened on that day and on the days that followed. It's said that the press is the first draft of history, and only afterwards the scholarly studies follow. To judge by the copious material that has already been published, Netanyahu will be crucified in the history books as the person who weakened Israel and bolstered the strength of Hamas and of our other enemies. According to what has already been published, Netanyahu supplied Hamas with money via Qatar, provided it and Hezbollah and Iran with the quiet they needed to build up their strength, oversaw the reduction of IDF's ground forces, and above all, mistook and misled the army and the intelligence bodies about Hamas's intentions, while imposing the concept that, quote, Hamas has been deterred, which of course, this is me, caused the complacency within the military that made possible October 7th. So, I completely agree with Benny Morris's assessment of Netanyahu, or almost agree with all of it. I think this is going to be the assessment of history books, but it's going to take history, because right now, at least in the United States, American Jews are enamored by Netanyahu. They hang on every word that he says. Again, he gives a good speech. But the reality is that he is directly responsible for October 7th. It is his actions or inaction. It is his assessment of the geopolitical situation that directly led to what happened. Now, of course, that doesn't diminish at all the moral and legal and every responsibility Hamas has. Ultimately, it's their crime. But from the perspective of Israel's failure is the responsibility of Netanyahu. And the idea that he is still prime minister, the idea that Chamberlain, which is what he is Israel's Chamberlain, would survive and keep going after his, unbelievable failures, it just astounds me. And the fact that people within his own political party in the Likud have not turned against him and are not calling for his resignation and are not demanding elections or something else is just unbelievable. Unbelievable. It is not the army leaders. Army leaders are never responsible for these kind of failures. These failures are failures of the political leadership that sets the context for the army. It is the political leadership that decided to trim Israeli forces. It's the political leadership that moved troops to the West Bank that should have been on the border with Gaza. It is the political leadership that decided that Hamas had been deterred and Hamas really wanted just to be left alone and just a political settlement. These are all assessments that came from Netanyahu. These are all assessments of the political leadership. It is not primarily a military failure. And the fact that they didn't go immediately into Gaza is not a military failure. It's a political failure. It was Netanyahu's decision when to go into Gaza. The fact that Hezbollah has not been destroyed is a political decision, not a military decision. The fact that in 2007, in 2009, in 2014, in all these small wars between Israel and Hamas and Hezbollah, the fact that Israel didn't defeat them, didn't crush them then, didn't take those threats seriously then, didn't engage in the fact that Hamas could lob missiles into Israel at will and faced very little consequences. The fact that over 1,000 prisoners were released to get one Israeli military hostage, Shalit. Those are all political decisions, and they were all political decisions made by none other than Netanyahu, nobody else. He was prime minister during that entire period. So absolutely, this is Netanyahu's fault. It is above and beyond everything else. His failure. His failure. Military leadership, by the way, the head of military intelligence resigned. He took responsibility. He said he will not, he takes full responsibility for it, and it's going to haunt him for the rest of his life. And the head of the army, head of the military, the commander-in-chief of the military, not the commander-in-chief, that would be the president, the joint chief or whatever of Israeli forces, it basically said as soon as this war is ended, he will retire. He takes responsibility. The only person who is not taking any responsibility, and the one most responsible, is Netanyahu. And I don't think Israelis still buy it. I think that if elections tomorrow, he would lose. But they don't fully grasp how bad Netanyahu is. He is a master at fooling people. He is a master at presenting political theater, which is what he's very good at. All right. So I did promise a positive show today. Hasn't been positive until now. So I want to say a few things that hopefully inspire and help you out, and positive. And then we can then we'll turn to your questions and super chats, and please continue to provide them and continue to do stickers and provide support, which I really, really appreciate. So when you read the objectivist ethics and you think about the virtues, and remember, Ayn Rand has this revolutionary approach to morality, a revolutionary approach to ethics, a revolutionary approach to living life. An approach that says that your life, you should live it for yourself. Pursuing your own values, living for the sake of your own happiness, making the most of your own life in a rational way. That is, in a rational way. In a, pursuing reason in every part of your life and following it to its conclusion. And living the fullest life that you can, a purposeful life, a life that is where you have a clear goal, clear purposes, and you know what you want, or you try to discover what you want, and what you want is what is good for you. If you want something that's not good for you, stop wanting it. This is a really revolutionary idea. It's a revolutionary philosophy. It's a revolutionary set of, a moral code. It provides you with guidance in terms of the principles by which to choose your values, by proposing 3 cardinal values: reason, purpose, and self-esteem. Every other value should be within the context of reason, purpose, and self-esteem. You should be striving for things consistent and integrating with reason, purpose, and self-esteem. And the virtues, rationality, honesty, integrity, productiveness, independence. What am I missing? Justice, pride. Maybe I missed one. I'm not sure. But anyway, those virtues and the sub-virtues that come, under each one of those, these are the actions that you need to take in order to achieve these goals. Underlying all of this is, I think I said honesty. Honesty, I think I said second, is the importance of your own life, the value of your own life, and the value of living the best life that you can. All of these values and virtues are targeted at human flourishing, success in being alive, success in living, which ultimately is happiness. It's that achievement of values, but achievement of ambitious values. If you just achieve, conventional, uninspiring, unambitious values, it's not going to do much to your self-esteem, and it's not going to do much to promoting your own happiness. So it's living. In my rules for life, I said living with a capital L. And what does that mean? It really does mean being ambitious in everything in your life. And I think that also means having a certain perspective on life, having a certain attitude towards the things that you do in your life. And one way to think about that is viewing life as this amazing, exciting, thrilling adventure. Not letting yourself get into kind of the perspective of life is just, repetition and living in, what is it? Somebody used the word rut the other day, getting stuck in a rut, getting stuck in just the same thing over and over again, even if it's in pursuit of a particular value. Is it? You've got to question if things get boring, stale, ordinary. You should question your values. You should question your life. Is this right? Is this how you want to live your life? Life should be, it won't be all the time, but you should try to make it an adventure. It should be exciting, ambitious, sometimes thrilling. It should be interesting and different. It should be varied. You should try different things, because it's really hard to tell in the world in which we live what is going to get us most excited. What is the most thrilling thing we can do? What is the thing that is going to provide us even with meaning? I mean, one of the things I think young people, one of the things that scares them is this idea of, oh, I have to choose a career. When I'm 18, I have to go and, figure out what I'm going to study in college, and then, I need to find a job, and, and they're so focused on these things, and they have to decide. And how do you know what you want to do in life? Some people do. I never did, but some people do. But the reality is that it's hard to figure out what you want to do in life. And it's not obvious. And for most of us, we don't have a clear career in mind when we're young. Well, then find stuff that interests you and go and do it. Find stuff that interests you and go study it. And if it doesn't work out, do something different. If it doesn't work out, change careers. Now, I know that's easier said than done, but it's doable. It's doable if you value your life long term. If you really take purpose and career seriously, then you've got to find the right purpose, the right career, the right central value, central purpose in your life. And for that, you might have to experiment. You might not be able to just figure it out right off the bat. You might have to go to school, and maybe then you work a few years, and maybe then go back to school, or maybe go and do one of these boot camps, or I don't know. You got to figure that out. I know there's a lot of discussion here about where one should live. How do you know where you should live until you've tried a few places? Get out from where it's comfortable. Get out from where it's just, easy. Go out there and move around a little bit. Now, again, not everybody can, given their jobs, given family. It's expensive. But don't just accept where you are and what you're doing as a given, as the dead end, as inevitable, as unchangeable. Be ambitious in every aspect. If you're curious about what it's like to live in New York, see if you can figure out a way to go live in New York. If you're in New York and you want to live in the Midwest, and see whether you like living in Iowa, in a small town in Iowa, try it out. Go test it. Don't just accept the given. Make your life. Build it. And that will require adventure. And that will require failure. You will go places that you don't like. And you'll say, whoops, I lost 6 months of my life. That sucks, right? Yeah. We're all going to fail. We all fail in some endeavor or other that we do in life. But there's no way for you to move forward. There's no way for you to achieve. There's no way for you to figure out what really works for your life. There's no way for you to make the best life that you can without taking risks, without going on an adventure, and without once in a while falling flat on your face. I mean, every entrepreneur knows this. Certainly every serial entrepreneur knows this. If you're going to start a company, there's a good chance you won't succeed. But that shouldn't stop you from doing it. And it might involve you having to work 16-hour days, 7 days a week, for years. And you still might fail. And you'll learn from that, hopefully, and go do the next thing. There's a sense in which we could all learn from entrepreneurs and really be the entrepreneurs of our lives. Take entrepreneurship seriously, integrate it into every aspect of our life, and view our career as an entrepreneurial activity, where we live as an entrepreneurial activity, what we do. I mean, how many young guys, and I know almost all my listeners are men, how many of you guys are single and just accepting of that? And I know I don't want to get into the whole women intimidate you thing, but you've got to be an entrepreneur. You've got to be willing to fail. You've got to try. You've got to make an effort. You've got to view it as an adventure. You got to go out there and be ambitious. So you should be ambitious about friendship. You should be ambitious about relationships, about romantic love. You should be ambitious about your career. You should be ambitious about the life that you live, the place that you live in. I guess what worries me is that people tend to settle very quickly in life. And, people tend to then have, midlife crises and because those midlife crises almost always, if you look around, manifest themselves in all kind of superficial stuff. Because, we're idealistic when we're young, and then we settle down and things become a bit of a grind. Well, if it does, break out of it. Find ways to challenge yourself. Find ways to stimulate yourself. Find ways to make it interesting, to change things up. Right? And go out there and do. I see so many people who seem to spend their lives on social media, complaining, bitching, arguing, debating, having very strong opinions about politics, which they have almost no influence over. And yet, not really living, sitting in your basement, posting on Facebook is not living. So, Frend Harper says, midlife crisis to me is a symptom of happiness anxiety. Yes, but it's a justified happiness anxiety. A lot of people realize that they are not happy. A lot of people realize that they have not lived the best life that they can live. A lot of people reach kind of a middle age and they realize that their idealism from when you were young is gone. That the things that they hoped would happen when they were young are not there. I don't know, that maybe they're not sexually attracted to their wife anymore, that they're not, they don't love their wife anymore, or they, that all this stuff with kids and everything is more of a burden, and they don't really enjoy their career anymore. It's kind of, they're just stuck in the corporate, the corporate, what do you call it, mousetrap, or the flywheel or whatever. They don't feel like they've lost their ambition. And that's good that they realize that, but then it manifests itself in buying fast cars and, cheating on your wife with, in stupid ways. Instead of really thinking, using your mind, right? Reasoning and reigniting that ambition. Reigniting that passion. Figuring out how to reorient your life at this point in a rational way consistent with reason, purpose, self-esteem, to live a better life, to make it more meaningful, to make it more interesting, to make it more exciting. Hamster wheel, there we go, the hamster wheel. You're stuck on a hamster wheel. Thank you, Jennifer. So, let me encourage you, most of my listeners are under the age of 45, over 50%, 60 plus percent, I think, under the age of 45. Don't let yourself get stuck that way. Keep pushing. Keep reinventing yourself. Keep rediscovering values. Keep orienting yourself towards your values. Keep thinking about your passions and how to achieve them. And, are they rational? Do they make sense? But once they are, and keep figuring out how to make life interesting. And stop making excuses. Everybody has excuses. I don't have money. I have a family. I've lived here my whole life. It's too scary to leave this place. Stop the excuses. Right? Stop the excuses. And, once your values are identified, go and seek them out. Go and pursue them with passion. Right? Life is an adventure, and we live in a world, and this is, again, this idea of focusing too much on politics. Yes, you can focus on the Democrats and the Republicans and how awful they all are, and they are. They're all terrible. And it doesn't bode well for our future, and there are all kind of depressing things going on in the world. On the other hand, we live in a world where most of you can pursue professions and careers and wealth accumulation that was just unimaginable even 50, 40, 30 years ago. Most of us can travel. It's cheap. We can see the world. There's no excuse today not to go see the world. There's no excuse today not to be exposed to, a variety of new experiences, new adventures. The costs are trivial as compared to what they used to be. We live from a material perspective, and from the perspective of the potential to pursue your own values, maybe in the best time in all of human history. Certainly from a material perspective, but even from the perspective of pursuing your values. For most of us, this is the best time ever. You can go study what you want. You can go pursue a career of your choice. Just, don't post nasty stuff online if you live in the UK. But maybe that's a good reason to leave the UK. And yes, it's becoming more difficult to emigrate, but it's not impossible. If you really want to do it, there are ways to do it. So again, don't limit yourself. Don't accept the given. Don't accept the way things are. Fight less the political battles out there, because you're not going to have much impact there. Fight for your own life. Fight for your own values. Fight to make your life as meaningful and as exciting and as interesting and as stimulating as you can. Because that's what it's about. It's about interesting, and it's about flourishing, taking it all in. And do it when you're young, because the older you get, the less energy you're going to have. That's just the reality of biology, right? The less energy you're going to have. So do as much of it as you can when you're young. And the other thing that I know people do is one day I'll do X, Y, Z. One day I'll do X, Y, Z. If you really want to do it, do it. Find a way to do it. Don't delay. Now, all of this, of course, in the context of your life, all of this in the context of your central purpose, your career, all of this in the context of all the priorities you have, your family and everything else. But even there, think about how to make that interesting. Think about how to make that fun. Think about how to make that exciting. Every single one of those should be. Right? All right, so stop being so depressed about the state of the world and take that energy and focus it on thinking through how to make your life better in whatever way works for you. And it's not the way that will work for me, and it's not the way, but whatever way, the principles will be the same, right? All right. Let's see. Okay, we're going to move to the super chat section. I'm going to answer some super chats. Again, lots of time to ask questions, so please feel free to do so. And lots of time still to support the show, so feel free to do that. We are still, pretty far behind where we need to be. So I'd appreciate whatever support you guys can provide. And let's see, what else did I want to say? Yes, those of you who are not listening live, which is most of you, a very, very small minority of people, other people who listen live, most people listen after the fact. Please consider supporting the Yaron Brook Show. Again, those of you who support the show, thank you. You make the show possible. Couldn't exist without you. Those of you who are not yet supportive of the show, you can do so on Patreon. Just search Yaron Brook Show on Patreon or on PayPal. yaronbrookshow.com/membership will take you to a PayPal page where you can make a monthly contribution to the Yaron Brook Show. So please do that. Yes, most of the funds to make the show keep going are not from the super chat, although it's an important part, but they come from the monthly contributions. And of course, from our sponsors. We have a few. John Bobbin is a sponsor. John is a long-time businessman in the area of nutrition, nutritional supplements, vitamins, things like that. He has a podcast where he promotes healthy living, exercise, diet, nutrition. He kind of aggregates, summarizes, and essentializes all the work that's being done by so many of these experts that are online. And he gives his perspective on it all. His perspective is very much driven by an individualistic, reason-based approach to the science. And what he tries to do is he gets you to personalize and to test and to evaluate how to best apply all the knowledge, all the science to your particular situation so that you can get the best effects from exercise and from changes in nutrition. So go check out his YouTube channel. The link is below, but you can also just look John Bobbin, B-A-R-B-A-N, on YouTube. The Ayn Rand Institute is a sponsor of the show. Ayn Rand Institute right now is promoting the Ayn Rand University. You can learn the objectivist ideas from the world's best experts at the Ayn Rand University, so please apply to study there. It's a serious program. You get graded, you get exams, you get tested. I'm teaching a course right now on public speaking. I will be teaching a course, I think, early next year on finance, kind of an intro to finance class. At the Ayn Rand University. We'll be teaching lots of other classes, so consider applying to the university. It's an online school of philosophy, educating students about objectivism and providing them with the intellectual, career, and life guidance they need to flourish. Whether you're a college-age student, just embarking on your studies, working professional seeking philosophical development, or an aspiring professional intellectual, Ayn Rand University offers courses fit to your schedule and your goals. You can learn more and apply for the university to be part of the program at aynrand.org/start here. aynrand.org/start here, where you'll find applications for the university. You'll also find scholarship applications for the conference in Australia, for the conference in Berlin in Europe in March, and for the conference in Austin, Texas, I think in February. All of the information is available at aynrand.org/start here. So please go there to get that info. And finally, Alex Epstein, alexepstein.substack.com is a sponsor. He is the world expert on environmentalism, fossil fuels, energy, all things related to energy. And he publishes regular talking points, regular points that address the issues, these kind of issues. They provide you with principles and concrete information about the issues of the day. Is a fantastic source. I encourage you to subscribe and to use the material you get from Alex. Alex is terrific. All right, let's see. Good. Let's jump in with some super chats. I'm looking for some $50, $100 stickers or super chats or whatever you had. And it says, Alex Epstein is the best voice on energy on the right. He's not on the right. Alex is not on the right. God, the right today is collectivist. Alex is just the best voice on energy, period. Best voice on energy, period. And he does it from an individualistic perspective, not a right-wing perspective, not a left-wing perspective, not a collectivist perspective, an individualistic perspective. And I don't mean to gang up on you, Ann. I'm just trying to clarify this left-right because it's such a confusion out there. Left and right, both are horrible, right? They're both collectivist, and Alex and myself and objectivism are not on the right, and we're not on the left. We're on the individualistic versus collectivistic spectrum. That's the spectrum, individualism, collectivism. We're on the individualist side. The today's right and left are both on the collectivist side. All right. Graham. Thank you, Yaron, for what you do. I appreciate it greatly. I know the Canadian dollar isn't the best place. Maybe the conservatives will deregulate and unleash Canadian resources and make our dollar a bit better. I doubt it. Yeah, we can hope so, and it's likely that in Canada, certainly, the Conservatives are going to be better than Trudeau, better than the left. So I would definitely vote Conservative if I lived in Canada. But yes, they get into power. There's all this excitement. There's all this hope that they will really bring about real change, and then they almost always disappointed, right? They almost always disappoint. Ann says, oh, sorry, I thought it was Republicans who mostly hired him. It is Republicans who mostly hire him, but he, as an intellectual, is not on the right. I wouldn't count him as on the right. I would count him as on the individualist side, on the pro-individual right side of the spectrum, neither left nor right. Let me do this, Michael, because he says this was a $100 question. He says, it seems Israel's plan is to spare as many civilian lives as possible while destroying all infrastructure in Gaza. It is the view that life must be protected, but property is privilege that can be. Now, I don't know what the second part of this is, Michael, so I might have to wait for next time. But it certainly seems that Israel is far, is quite willing to destroy infrastructure. And is not willing to kill civilian lives. And the reason is really, I think, pretty simple. Infrastructure can be rebuilt. Infrastructure can be recreated. So there's no question that lives are more valuable and more important than infrastructure. Now, I don't think that's the right approach and it's the right way to think about war, which is what Israel's engaged in. But generally, you can rebuild a house, particularly if the Qataris and the Saudis are going to give you money to do it. You can't resurrect a life, except if you're Jesus, I guess. So it's understandable to have a different attitude towards material things that can easily be fixed, can easily be replaced, than a different attitude towards life in a context where I guess there's some kind of trade-off. Now, I think Israel ultimately could save a lot of lives by being a lot more ruthless in the way it engages in the war. I think long-term it will save more lives. And long-term, it'll actually win. I think the main problem with Israel's strategy today is it's still not leading to victory. It's not leading to the complete annihilation of Hamas. It's not leading to the Gazan civilian population accepting defeat and recognizing that they have no chance in hell of defeating Israel. Somehow the fact that you're destroying the infrastructure just doesn't do it. It doesn't achieve the goal that you want to achieve. It can't. And this is why, a big part of why I think, this war is not going to lead to the kind of long-term peace that I think it could have led to if Israel had executed it properly. I fear that it's just another way of kicking the can down the road. Now, it could be kicking the can way down the road for a long time. But it was an opportunity. Out of the horror, out of the evil, there was an opportunity to engage in a war that actually defeated the Palestinians unequivocally and forced them to reconcile themselves to peace with Israel, to life with Israel. Missed opportunity, missed many opportunities, and unbelievably sad. Let's see, what are we doing here? All right, Mary Aline. Oh, I answered this yesterday. What opera are you going to on Sunday? How did you come to love opera? What are some of your favorite operas and why? I especially like Verdi and Donizetti, but also many others. We're going to see a staging of La Traviata now. It's not going to be, and then the following week we're going to see Madame Butterfly. It's not going to be a full staging of the opera. It's going to be scenes with the orchestra on the stage, not in a pit. So it's not an actual opera house. It's all we could get in the summer, which is not typically opera season. It's here in Barcelona. It's part of the music scene or program during the summer here in Barcelona. But La Traviata is so beautiful that I'm quite happy to see even segments of it, and even if it's not fully staged and all the rest of it. In terms of who do I love, operas that I love the most, I certainly love Verdi and Puccini, I think, as the top. La Bohème is beautiful. Madame Butterfly is beautiful. I think my favorite of Puccini's is Tosca. I love Verdi, pretty much everything he does, but his middle operas, his most famous operas are my favorite: La Traviata, Aida, Il Trovatore, Rigoletto, Don Carlos. Those are some, I'm sure I've forgotten some, but those are some, Nabucco, some of my favorite operas from Verdi. I love Donizetti, some Bellini, Rossini, not just the Barber of Seville, but other operas are quite beautiful. Mozart, a number of Mozart operas are truly magnificent and fun, and some of them are fun, some of them are funny and entertaining. I even like Wagner. I love the drama in Wagner, just the intensity of the drama in Wagner. It can get a little long-winded sometimes, I find, but Wagner is in some ways unmatched in his romanticism and in the music and in just his ability to evoke emotion and in the suspense and the drama and, again, the sheer magnitude of the emotions. So I like some Wagner's. I mean, I like everything Wagner wrote in doses. I don't think I could do the whole Ring cycle in one sitting, but I certainly enjoy the operas when I see them, particularly when the staging is good as well. It is a play, musical play, so staging is crucial. Staging is important on top of everything else. What else? How did you come to love opera? I came to love opera the same way I came to love classical music. I mean, I'll give you the short version of the story. But I had always poo-pooed classical music and opera. Even when I became an objectivist, I just couldn't, it was associated with my parents, and I couldn't get into it. And I think a lot of it had to do with not taking it seriously and not approaching it the right way. So I never really listened to it, not seriously. Until I really met the first objectivist. For 3 years, I thought I was the only objectivist alive. And in 1980, I think it was, no, 1981, I met the first group of objectivists in my life, right? There's this group in Israel led by one particular guy. And this was 1981. And the first time I met them, I went to this house, and there were a bunch of them sitting around talking, and the guy who kind of was the leader of this little group played, I think it was Rachmaninoff's third piano concerto. I don't think it was the second. I think it was his third piano concerto, and some other stuff. And the way they listened to it, everybody was quiet. They took it very seriously. Listening to classical music was something you engaged in, you did. It wasn't just something in the background. It wasn't just something that was like we listen to popular music. It wasn't just something that you did while driving. It wasn't something you did while you were doing housework. This was something you sat down, you got comfortable, and when it was in a group, everybody was quiet. Nobody said a word. Nobody made a sound. You focused all your energy on the music. And it was, kind of revelatory. It was this, it really changed me. It really had an impact on me. And I got to know this group of objectives really, really well. I became a big part of them, and part of almost every meeting we would have, every get-together, every gathering we would have, we would play music. Everybody would be quiet, we'd put on a record, and we would play classical music, and we'd play parts of it. And part of that was opera. And through that, started to listen to just arias in the beginning, just arias, just to get the familiarity with the style, with the method. Listen to, then started listening to longer sections of opera, then, watch opera movies on VHS in those days, and then go to live performances of operas. So it was a gradual process, which I think is important in classical music. I don't think you should introduce classical music, boom, all at once. I don't think when you first start in classical music, you should sit down and listen to a whole symphony. Certainly not a whole symphony by Mahler, right? There is a sequence. You have to train your ear, but really it's train your mind, train your brain, train your ability to focus properly, right? So that requires listening to shorter bits, maybe a movement here, a movement there, an aria here, an aria there, until you can grasp and develop the focus, particularly right now with the short attention spans people have. So yes, it requires training. So this guy who I met when I was 20 years old, 19, 20, really taught me about music. And then I'd say he taught me about art more generally, the whole idea of appreciating art, appreciating aesthetics, painting, sculpture, because my parents loved modern so-called art. I was not exposed to great art, and to the extent that I was exposed to it, I poo-pooed it as old, and I got a little sense of art out of the Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged, but didn't take it seriously until this guy taught me about it, and taught the whole group of Israeli objectivists. I think I and my wife and maybe a couple of other people were the ones that really took it seriously. But he, he turned out bad in the end. But he gets a lot of credit in my life in giving me these values: the classical music, the art appreciation. I give kudos to. His name was Ohad, because, he changed my life for the better. And in spite of the fact that he went bad afterwards and he did a lot of damage and a lot of harm to a lot of people, he changed my life for the better. So, good for me, good for him, right? But yeah, in the realm of aesthetics, I'd say that's the primary way in which he had an impact on my life. Mary-Ellen, thank you for the sticker. Really appreciate that. Somebody says, the stories, right, of youngsters being kicked out of AOI over listening to the wrong type of music. Yeah, I mean, there are lots of, urban myths. Let me just say that is BS. That is complete nonsense. Nobody's ever been kicked out of AOI over listening to the so-called wrong music. I was CEO of AOI for 17 years. I think I would know something about what happened at AOI. Nobody during my tenure, and for that matter, nobody during Mike Belinda's tenure, I know Mike well, was kicked out of AOI because of listening to the wrong music. That is just one of those stupid stories that people perpetuate because I don't know why, because they're bitter and angry because somebody disagreed with them about their musical tastes. I mean, I would tell people I think their musical tastes suck, but that doesn't mean being kicked out of AOI. Nobody was ever kicked out of AOI for that. Indeed, Don Watkins, my co-author, he likes music that I don't like, put it simply, right? And he has no appreciation for the music I like. And yet, we co-author books together. So, give me a break. And, heavy metal, Slayer, whatever it's called, it doesn't touch a candle. It doesn't come close to the value you can get out of proper listening to classical music. But I'm not going to kick you out of objectivism because we disagree about it. I'm a little sad that your generation didn't have the opportunity I had of being exposed to this. And, I'm lucky because I could have easily gone through life not appreciating classical music, never meeting this guy, never learning about it, never being introduced to it in the right kind of way, and never gaining that appreciation. And I have achieved so much joy and pleasure out of classical music. I can't describe how much. And, all I'm saying is try it out. Try it out. I don't particularly like Bach. He's far from my favorite. So, I wouldn't recommend people start with Bach. I know Enric says I like Bach, but it didn't get much of classical music. I'd say you got to keep trying. It's worth the effort. It's worth the try, because when it does click, it's life-changing, and it gives a whole new dimension, I think, to living. Yeah, I mean, you guys can keep arguing about metal music and all of that, and that's fine, and that's what you enjoy. As I said, I'm not going to kick you out of anyway. But there is a difference. There's a difference in values, and there's a difference in sense of life, and there's a difference in, the essence of metal, is anger. That's the essence of metal. It's the whole essence of it. It's anger and frustration. And most metal, not all metal, most metal, the outcome is a kind of a nihilistic outburst. That is the essence of it. It's the very opposite of classical music in terms of its sense of life and its terms of what it's trying to convey. All right. Let me remind everybody again, I hate doing this so often, that the show is funded through contributions of listeners like you. So that's what makes the show go, and I'm providing the value by doing the shows. You provide the value by supporting it financially. That is the trade. Friend Harper, how do you conceptualize adventure? To me, it's risking the unknown in pursuit of value. Thanks for answering these types of questions when I ask. I try to wield Rand's razor like a sword, and your perspective helps. Yes, I mean, I think unknown might be a little strong. I think it's I would say something like pursuing values in the face of uncertainty, pursuing values with the acceptance of risk in the face of uncertainty, something like that. Unknown, how do you pursue values when things are unknown? Unknown is zero, nothing, it's not known. And obviously something is known. So when you start a new company, when you do a startup, are you risking the unknown in pursuit of value? Not really, right? It's not right to say the unknown. You're certainly taking risk, and you're doing things that might not have known consequences. But I wouldn't call it risking the unknown. I'm not even sure what risking the unknown exactly means. So it's pursuing values in the face of uncertainty, in the face of risk, in the face of challenges, right? In the face of challenges. I'd say that's what adventure is. And it's not, there could be an element of unknown, like Christopher Columbus sailing out into the Atlantic, literally not knowing what lies on the other side. But even then, he certainly didn't conceptualize it as the unknown. He conceptualized it as, I'm gonna sail to to Asia, and that's what's on the other side of this ocean. So he had a sense of where he was going. He wasn't heading towards the unknown. Harper Campbell says, Frend Harper. God, where is Harper Campbell? I haven't seen him in a long time. Or is there a Harper Campbell? You Harpers have confused me. Frend Harper says, I guess by unknown I mean that anything could happen in the pursuit. True, but again, anything could happen is a little broad, and unknown is broad. So it's in the face of challenges, in the face of risks, in the face of uncertainty. Those are the kind of things that I think of when I think of pursuing value in an adventurous kind of way, right? You're going to a new city. You know a lot about going to a new city, but there's a lot you don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's going to be a lot of challenges. There's a lot of risk you're taking on. You might land up hating it. So yeah, keep trying to refine that definition. I think ultimately you'll get it. James, how do you view places like the UK or any country when the policies and general population are moving away from freedom altogether? You mentioned the taxes in Puerto Rico. Did you not like any other Caribbean countries? I don't know any other Caribbean countries. I mean, I didn't, there wasn't a array of options, because the reality is that Puerto Rico offers a very unique circumstances. It's the only place on planet Earth where an American citizen doesn't pay federal taxes. And that you can't get in the Cayman Islands, you can't get in Jamaica, you can't get, and Puerto Rico has the unique benefit of still being part of the United States. So you get the rule of law of the United States, which is crucially important. And you get certain services that are American services. For example, I don't have to go through customs or passports when I travel in and out of Puerto Rico from the US. So there are a lot of things that made Puerto Rico completely unique. And it wasn't a competition between Puerto Rico and other places, certainly not a competition between Puerto Rico and other Caribbean nations. I had never thought about living in any Caribbean country, and I don't, because I value too much the rule of law that is still provided in the United States, and Puerto Rico has that. So by living in Puerto Rico, I haven't left the US, but I gain the benefit of not living in the US, which is weird, but it's that unique neither here nor there position Puerto Rico's in. Jennifer, Neil Peart said, ambition is, quote, the rocket that lights itself and launches its way to the stars. That's good. I like that a lot. The rocket that lights itself and launches its way to the stars. That's ambition. Yes, and if you don't have ambition, then work on it. Find things that excite you, that make you want to be ambitious, that spark ambition in you. All right, guys, we made it to the second hour, 2 hours already, but we're still falling behind. We're still way behind on that second hour. So, if anybody can help us get to our goals, it would be greatly appreciated. Super chat is open. Hunter, the poet Wallace Stevens once said, life is not people and scenes, but thoughts and feeling. The world is myself, life is myself. Reminds me of Rand, I will not die, quote. Are you familiar with Stevens? He was chastised for making art for art's sake at a time of international upheaval. He responded that the world was getting better, not worse. He was an optimist among contemporary pessimists like T.S. Eliot and Ezra Pound. No, I'm actually not familiar with Wallace Stevens. That's really interesting. I like this idea of being an optimist, particularly during that era, and that he could hold that the world was getting better. That is an achievement. I don't know that I worry about the poem itself. Life is not people and scenes, but thoughts and feelings. The world is myself, life is myself. I mean, the world is not myself. So there's a risk here in what he's saying. There's an interpretation of what he's saying, which is kind of a primacy of consciousness. I invent the world, I create reality. It's all in my head. I make it up as I go, which is quite philosophically dangerous and quite philosophically the opposite of objectivism. It reminds me a little bit of, what was the poet, the 19th century poet, Walter Emerson, who also had very uplifting, very motivating, but also very primacy of conscious feelings and emotions as primary. Now here, to his credit, he said thoughts and feelings. But the world is not your thought. The world indeed is people out there and the things out there and the way you respond to them. But you're responding to something. So your thoughts and feelings are not about inside you. They are, your thoughts and feelings are responses to an outside world. Indeed, consciousness is consciousness of the world out there. It's conscious of the reality out there. It's not primarily and not first and foremost consciousness of yourself. So the world is not myself. So I like the sentiment, and I like the optimism, but I've got philosophical quibbles. Okay, Michael, are people who are rude and inconsiderate thinking of themselves as selfish or self-serving? They're thinking this is how to get ahead, or they're not thinking at all. I think many of them are not thinking at all. I think a lot of rudeness and inconsiderateness is just kind of in the moment, and people would actually realize, oh, I didn't mean to do that, or whatever. Some of them conceptualize it as, this is the only way to get ahead. This is the only way to advance. To hell with them, as a kind of a pseudo-selfishness. But I think most of them, it's just emotionalism, the nature of it. So it's a combination of a pseudo self-interest, pseudo self-esteem, and emotionalism. Michael, did you see Mark Pelligrino debate David Smith over Israel? I did not. I heard it didn't go well, in a sense that Dave constantly was talking over Mark, and that the moderation was non-existent, and that just Dave steamrolled, and then was shocked that Mark interrupted him, and it just was not a good debate. But I haven't watched it. That's just what I heard from people. I wouldn't debate Dave Smith. I don't think he's an honest, other side of the debate. Michael, what apps do you use to stay organized and remember everything you need to do? Oh God. I've tried a bunch of apps to stay organized, and none of them have stuck. I use them for a couple of weeks and then I don't. I use a piece of paper and lists, or, oh yeah, I have it right here in front of me. I make to-do lists in Word, and I create these documents and then I erase them as I get them done, but just somewhere where they're all written so that I remember them. But most of my to-dos are just inside my head, just memory. I've tried lots of different apps and none of them does it for me. I just don't stick to it. I lose interest and I go back to my note-taking. Michael, are the American people today turned off by the harshness they perceive in Ayn Rand? No, I don't think so. I think they're turned off by the self-interest, by the selfishness, by the morality. I think it turns them off because it goes against everything they've been taught and everything they believe in and everything that the culture projects back to them. They're altruists. They're committed altruists. Altruism is the only way in which they can conceive of morality. And they can't think of anything else. So that's what turns them off of Ayn Rand is her moral code. And they can't think about it. They can't really think about it because their concepts and their whole view of the world is constrained. Michael says, would you say voting against the greater evil is a principle? No, because it's not always the case that you should vote against the greater evil, because it could be that you have two evils that are so great you can't vote for either one of them. So no, I don't think it's a principle. I think it's one strategy of voting. I think voting is overrated generally, but no, I don't think it's a principle. Michael, has Israel won a war since 1973? I mean, it depends how you define it. It's only won 1982, the war 1982, and got the Palestinians, the PLO, out of Lebanon. It turned out that, you know, that war also helped create Hezbollah, which turned out to be as deadly an enemy. And they never dealt with that, but they won the war. They didn't know what to do once they won. Once they won, they floundered, but they certainly won the war. Since then, they haven't won any war. Michael, why do we pronounce the G in longevity twice? I have no idea. Longevity, I don't know, and I don't know why it doesn't have two G's if we pronounce it twice. Good question. English is a funny language when it comes to, it's not completely phonetic, so it has these quirks associated with it. Michael, what did you make of Kamala Harris's pro-Israel comments during her DNC speech? I think it's part of her branding of herself as a centrist, trying to, basically tell her Jewish donors, don't worry, I'm not going to turn against you. I'm not part of this crazy left. I think she's trying to, basically confirm herself as a centrist, as a mainstream Democrat, as a Democrat like past Democrats, and that she's not going to change things in dramatic fashion. Michael, are emergency rooms in U.S. basically socialist? I don't like thinking in those terms. Emergency rooms in U.S. are basically governed by state regulations, state controls. Are they socialist? Are they fascist? How do you define those things? That's not important. What's important is that they function based on mandates dictated by the government. Are those socialist mandates? No, because they're not owned by the government. The government doesn't own the means of production. But are they fascists? In a sense. But it's not useful to think about that. They're statists. They're run by the state. Michael, do you like Spain more than France? Yes, I actually do. The people are friendlier. It's just, I think it's easier to manage. I know Spain more than I know France. Maybe that's why I like it more. Why else? The food is actually, I think, better. More interesting, more varied. What else? It's warmer. Climate, I think, is better. I like the climate better. Yeah, it's, I don't know. I don't like the French. The French are stuck up. The Spanish are not. The Spanish are much friendlier, much nicer. And I think that is reflected in kind of the vibe on the street, if you will. Michael, the fact that we need freedom from force in order to live doesn't really resonate like it should. Well, it's not a matter of resonating. It's a matter of, yes, people don't understand what to live means. To live means using your mind in pursuit of your values consistently and ambitiously, and they don't get that. To them, living is just drifting. It's just being alive. It's just surviving. And they look around and they can see, yeah, in a mixed economy, people are fine. People are living. What's the issue? So the full force of what it means to live, that's why I always say capital L, to live is not resonates. If we could get people to understand that they should really live, then I think we can link that to the use of the mind and therefore the freedom from force that it requires. But first you have to get people to take their life seriously enough and to be ambitious about life. Is there anything she says that doesn't elicit her very own cackle? She doesn't cackle that much. I mean, I assume you're talking about Harris. She gave the whole talk and she didn't cackle much, so I don't know. I think too much is made of the cackle. Christoph, loved Economics in One Lesson. Any book recommendations for a 23-year-old who owns a business? I've read some of your books already. Amazing. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, Ludwig von Mises, I think is definitely worth reading his economics books. If you can get through Human Action, you could probably skip the first 70 pages. But his book on socialism, on socialist calculation, if you want to really get into economics, those are the books to go after. I mean, there are tons of books on economics that might not be quite as consistently good as Economics in One Lesson. You have to ask me when I'm home in front of my bookcase and I can pull the books out and make explicit recommendations, because otherwise lists are not the way my mind works. So it doesn't have a list of books there. But yes, I mean, there are a lot of books on the history of capitalism. There's a lot of books on just history of economics. And but the best books on economics, I think Ludwig von Mises. Israel Kurtzner has some good books on entrepreneurship, on its importance within the context of economics, and the entrepreneur and the role the entrepreneur plays in economics, which is very, very important. Jack asks, what do you think is the root cause of wokeness? Well, it depends what you mean by wokeness. If you mean by wokeness, identitarian politics, identitarian attitude, and everything that is involved in that. I think the root causes are, fundamentally, it goes back to the morality of Christianity, to altruism, the morality of altruism. Just think intersectionality, who is more oppressed, who is suffering more, who is lowest on the totem pole, they must be virtuous. Who is most successful, they must be the villain. That definitely is the logical consequence of the morality of Christianity. And the collectivism comes out of that same place. And then, of course, from a modern perspective, the root cause of wokeism is Immanuel Kant, right? The philosopher who divorces reason from reality and therefore makes us, in a sense, impotent as individuals and therefore destroys the individualism that was coming out of the Enlightenment philosophically, and sets us up for collectivism. So if you go from Kant to Hegel and to Marx, they're all rejecting individualism. So you get collectivism there. Hegel in particular, nationalism, and Marx focus on class, all ways in which to undercut individual human reason, and therefore individualism, replace it with collectivism. And then, of course, the proximate cause is postmodernism, which is taking all those ideas and basically recognizing the complete impotence, or claiming the complete impotence of reason, complete impotence of our ability to know reality, which they get directly from Kant, and saying that everything is subjective, and placing subjective emotions and subjective values at the pinnacle, questioning and doubting everything, without giving a means to discovering truth. Indeed, rejecting the whole idea of truth. So if you take all that has led to wokeness. Wokeness is not some completely new idea. It is basically a reformulation of a lot of ideas that have been slushing around on the left for a long time and have come together, right? But the origins are ancient, just as the origins of communism, in a sense, are ancient. They don't start with Marx; they start with Christianity, and Christian sects who established communist. And they probably even go back to before communism, right? I mean, if you look at Plato, it goes back to Plato, right? Before Christianity, I meant. So it goes back to Plato. Bree says, you're correct, the jobs survey includes temps and people receiving 1099s, in-kind workers, friends, relatives, or others. It is available at census.gov, program survey. It is QWI survey. Yeah, it's a survey, but it's extrapolation from the survey. It's not just counting in the survey. It's actually using statistical modeling in order to extrapolate from that on what they think the actual number is. Enric, why do Israelis continue to accept the deceptions of Netanyahu? Does that point to problems in Israel society? Yeah, I mean, Israel society is a Western society. It is filled with Kantian ideas. It is not a society based on individualism and individual liberty and individual freedom and it's not a society that has elevated reason to its proper place. It is just like any other Western society. It's filled with the irrationality, emotionalism. It is easily manipulated by politicians, particularly very smart ones like Netanyahu. It's just like, why do Americans buy into Donald Trump or Kamala Harris? For the same reasons, for the lack of individual independent thinking, a lack of respect for reason, and a lack of self-esteem. Israel is in the same exact position as the rest of the West. It's no better. It's no worse, but it's no better. Micah, has the Amazon Smile program had any impact on ARI? I haven't heard any of you mention it in a long time. I think it brings in some revenue to ARI. I don't think it's brought in a lot of revenue. It's not a game changer in terms of revenue, but it's I don't know, tens of thousands maybe a year. So it's a nice steady stream, but it's nothing to talk about because it's not that big of a deal. And even if we increased a little bit, it's not a game changer as compared to getting somebody to give us $1 million or $100,000 or several $100,000. So I think that's why it's not being mentioned. But yeah, people should use it. The Amazon Smile is a way for you you can set up your browser so that you can actually do that with the Yaron Brook show, by the way. You can go to my page on Amazon, and I'm an affiliate now, and you can, every time you buy something on Amazon, if you go through my page to buy it, you actually, I get a small percentage. And you can do the same thing with ARI as an affiliate. So, but that's a nonprofit, so they get, I think, a bigger percentage that I would get. But I actually got a nice check Not again, very small dollars, but it's still nice. I should remind you, there is a YouTube store where I'm selling T-shirts and mugs and things like that. You can find it on my YouTube channel, and you can buy T-shirts and mugs and stuff like that. And it's another source of revenue for the Yaron Brook Show. Mary Aline says Amazon Smile was discontinued a year or two ago. Oh wow, I didn't even know that. So now they have this affiliate program because I'm an affiliate, and if you go through my page, use a link, I get a percentage of everything you purchase on Amazon. Small percentage, very small percentage. Friend Harper. Song recommendations for anyone interested. Unmai by Sumika. To me, a sense of life is about adventure, both in ambition and in learning from mistakes and failure and growing from them. So that is Unmai, U-N-M-E-I, U-N-M-E-I by Sumika, S-U-M-I-K-A. Christian, what would you reply to Carolyn Glick when she says that the IDF leadership doesn't want a more hawkish foreign policy and that they don't like soldiers asking for being more aggressive? I'd say she's probably right, but who at the end of the day appoints the leadership in the IDF, and that's the Prime Minister. So no matter how you twist this, the military is just a reflection of civilian leadership. And you can only blame the military leadership so much. At the end of the day, the terms and the context and the setup is determined by the civilian leadership. So, and the military does what the civilian leadership tells it to do. Forever, the civilian leadership has been moderate and non-hawkish, and they have cultivated and brought up within the military ranks and appointed to senior positions within the military the people that best gave them what they wanted, which was, moderate stuff. P. Eddie, knowing you're a foodie, how is the food? I think you're in Barcelona. Yeah, I think Barcelona probably has the best food maybe in the world, in the sense that, it has some of the best restaurants in the world. Right now, the number one restaurant in the world, maybe it was last year, but is Disfrutar, which is here in Barcelona. We ate there yesterday. It was amazing, one of the best meals we've ever had. It's certainly one of the best, if not the best restaurant we've ever eaten at, one of the best. Barcelona and in Spain, San Sebastian, are the two places I think that have the best food in the world. But the thing about Barcelona is you can get pretty cheap food that's really, really good. You can get, so Disfrutar is very expensive, but then you can get also medium level, and you can get very cheap, and you can get all kinds. We ate at a good Indian restaurant the other day. There are Thai restaurants here. There are a lot of Japanese restaurants. There's this wide variety of food available in Barcelona, and it's all high quality. And then if you go to the grocery store and you buy tomatoes, you buy vegetables, you buy fruit, it all tastes amazing. Their farming here is really, really good. Their vegetables and fruits are amazing. So yeah, I think Barcelona, Spain generally has the best food in the world. And Barcelona in particular, because it's, multi-ethnic or whatever, has a wide variety of food. And very good, very good. Mika asks, I've always thought arrest reports were wrong since there has been no conviction in the system, but reputations can be irreparably damaged. Am I thinking about that wrong? I mean, I don't see how you get around it. You can't I don't think you can make arrests anonymous. There is a court record, and there are lawyers, and there's an audience in the courtroom. And I just don't see how you can avoid the fact that when the police make an arrest, it is public information, and people know about it. Newspapers report on it. They're interested in it, right? There's a murder. Who's the suspects? And who's being arrested? So I don't see how you get around that fact. It can destroy reputations, and in some cases, prosecutors, Giuliani was known for this, try to make a big deal out of arrests well before convictions, and they have destroyed reputations. And this is, Giuliani used to leak it to the press before he'd make an arrest on Wall Street. So the reporters were there, so he would get the picture with him putting the handcuffs on the guy or taking him out of the office in handcuffs, and he would get the picture and get the news story, and he wanted that. And many, many, many of those arrests were later overturned. On appeal or even in the primary court, he arrested people for very, very suspect reasons. It's no question. There are real consequences to it and real challenges. What was I doing? You know what we haven't had in a long time is people gifting memberships. That kind of died. What happened to that? How about gifting memberships? What happened to that? I don't know. Was I supposed to do a member show and didn't? Yeah, I did do a member show. Maybe I should do one this month, although this month is almost over. But yeah, gifting membership is another way to support the show. Please consider doing that. There was a period there where we were getting a lot of those, and that kind of disappeared. We'll have to start that up again soon. Let's see. All right. Where do we want to go? Mika, thank you. Liam, have you ever eaten at Katz's Deli in New York? Is it worth it? I think I have. Yeah, it's worth it if you like that kind of food. It is fun. And the corned beef sandwich is amazing. And yeah, that kind of food is good if you like deli food. Frank says, so again, why didn't kamikazes have ejection seats? Because they were kamikazes. The whole point was to die. The whole point was to crash their airplanes into the enemy and not save themselves, right? That is the whole point. The whole point is their sacrifice for the greater good of the empire, of the emperor, of the Japanese people. Yeah. Apollo Zeus. Who is the best of the three tenors? Placido Domingo, Lucia Pavarotti, or Jose Carreras? My mom liked Domingo. I certainly liked Domingo. I thought he was the best on stage. He acted. So he was definitely the best opera singer as a package. I think Pavarotti probably had the best voice and had the best range. I think most people agree with that. So Pavarotti had a sweeter voice too. They had different voices. But I think if you're going to watch them on stage or in a movie, Domingo is the better complete package. Last question. Apollo Zeus. Maria Callas, your thoughts? Yeah, I mean, maybe the greatest opera singer, female opera singer in history. Again, had the whole package. She was known. I never saw her on stage. I've seen some movies of her. She was known as a great actress in addition to her singing ability. Her ability to sing in the moment, in the scene, act it and sing it was extraordinary. If you listen to her recordings, the emotion that she can convey through her singing is unmatched, I think. There might be better technical singers out there, but that integration of singing and acting and emotion, delivering the emotion, delivering the passion, that Maria Callas was probably the best that ever was. All right, everybody. Thank you. Thanks to all the super chatters. I appreciate it. I will see you all tomorrow for the AMA. Remember, it's at 12 noon Eastern Time, not at 2 p.m., so it's earlier in the day. Yeah, I'll see you all then. Thanks. Again, thanks for the support. And thank you for all of the monthly supporters. Thanks for everybody who contributes to the show and makes this show possible. And have a great weekend. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.